Hi guys, and welcome to Quiet Voice podcast channel. Tonight we're boarding a 1959 overnight express for a peaceful winter journey toward the Finger Lakes, while snow falls steadily through the darkness. You stand beneath the broad roof of an old railway station, surrounded by warm lamps, drifting steam, and the soft scrape of shoes against the platform. Beyond the iron pillars, snowflakes circle through the yellow light. A porter raises his lantern. Somewhere in the distance, a locomotive releases a long, tired sigh, as though the great machine is already dreaming. So, before you settle into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. You may also leave a comment telling everyone where you are listening from and what the local time is there. Perhaps you are resting beneath a warm blanket, sitting beside a quiet window, or letting the story play while the night grows still around you. Your ticket waits in your gloved hand. Your train waits beside the platform. Now it's time to rest. The station clock shows a few minutes before midnight. Its hands move with such grave importance that you might think the entire railway depends upon them. In 1959, a large station clock is more than decoration. It governs departures, meetings, missed connections, and hurried goodbyes. Every passenger glances upward, even those pretending not to worry. You step closer to the train. The overnight express stretches along the platform amidst a line of dark green sleeping cars, polished coaches, a dining car, and a rounded observation car at the rear. Snow gathers upon the roofs, only to melt where hidden pipes and warm interiors push back against the cold. Each window shines like a small golden room floating in the winter night. Near the locomotive, steam rolls across the tracks and curls around the wheels. The engine is powerful, heavy, and slightly theatrical. It does not merely stand there bare. It appears to breathe. A conductor in a dark uniform examines your ticket. His cap sits perfectly straight despite the wind, which seems unfair to everyone else. He punches the card with a neat metal click and points you toward the sleeping car. You walk beside the train, feeling the packed snow crunch beneath your shoes. The metal steps are cold under your hand. A porter waits at the entrance and welcomes you aboard with the calm confidence of someone who has helped thousands of travellers carry far too many suitcases. You surrender your heavier bag. It disappears into his care with remarkable ease. Your smaller case remains beside you, containing a nightshirt, a toothbrush, a book, and enough unnecessary clothing to suggest that you expect several different climates before breakfast. Inside, warmth folds around you. The scent is a comforting mixture of wool coats, furniture polish, coffee, hot metal, and faint tobacco smoke. The corridor is narrow, lined with varnished wood and small brass fittings. Frost traces delicate patterns along the outer edges of the windows, but the glass near the centre remains clear. Records confirm that overnight trains in 1959 still carry large numbers of travellers across the United States, even as airlines and private automobiles grow increasingly popular. Sleeping cars remain symbols of civilized travel. You do not simply move from one place to another. You dine, read, converse, and sleep while the country passes beneath you. Your compartment is compact but carefully arranged. A broad seat faces the window. A small folding table rests beneath a shaded lamp. There is a mirror, a luggage rack, a call button, and a little metal control for the heat. The control offers several mysterious settings, all of which seem to produce approximately the same temperature. Your coat settles onto a hook. Your gloves rest beside the window. You sit, and the deep seat accepts your weight with a soft sigh. Outside, families gather near the carriage doors. A woman embraces an older relative beneath a black umbrella. A businessman checks his watch twice in 10 seconds. A child presses both hands against the glass of a coach window, delighted by the snow and entirely unaware that everyone else would prefer it to stop. A red signal glows beyond the platform. The porter moves along the corridor, checking doors and answering questions. Oddly enough, some passengers leave their shoes where an attendant can collect and polish them during the night. It is an elegant custom, although placing your footwear outside a curtain requires a level of trust that modern travellers may find almost heroic. A bell rings beneath the station roof. Conversation fades. Doors close one by one. Metal latches settle into place. The conductor calls a final warning, his voice travelling through steam and snowfall. A late passenger hurries across the platform with his hat in one hand and dignity somewhere far behind him. He reaches the train just in time. The locomotive answers with a low whistle. At first, nothing appears to happen. Then a gentle pull passes through the carriage. Glasses tremble. The brass handle beside your seat gives a tiny shake. The platform begins to move backward, slowly enough for every farewell to remain visible. You watch the station lamps slide past the window. Pillars interrupt the view in a steady rhythm. Faces appear, vanish, and appear again. The great clock drifts away beneath the roof, still keeping time for people who remain behind. Snow brushes the glass in pale diagonal lines. The wheels find their rhythm as the train clears the station switches. There is a clatter, a pause, and then the softer repeating music of the open track. The sound gathers beneath your feet and travels through the walls. Railway historians still disagree over whether 1959 belongs to the last golden period of American passenger trains or to the unmistakable beginning of their decline. From your warm compartment, the argument feels strangely distant. The express is full tonight. The dining car is prepared. The sleeping berths are waiting. For these few hours, the railway seems eternal. Warehouses pass outside, their loading doors dark beneath white roofs. Signal towers stand beside complicated webs of track. Telegraph poles lean into the storm. Farther away, apartment windows glow above quiet streets where most people are already asleep. You loosen your collar and rest one shoulder against the seat. The train gathers speed. City lights begin to scatter. Brick buildings become smaller. Roads cross beneath you and disappear. Snow covers empty freighter yards, parked trucks, and forgotten stacks of timber. Everything ordinary becomes graceful beneath the white fall. A final whistle reaches into the night, long and lonely, then fades behind the carriage. You are moving north and west now, carried toward the dark hills, frozen fields, and distant lakes. The station is gone. The city is loosening its hold around you. Polished wood creaks gently as the overnight express settles into its journey. Beyond the window, snow continues falling without hurry. Inside, the lamps remain warm, the wheels remain steady, and the long winter night opens quietly before you. The sleeping car receives you with a gentler rhythm now, as though the train has found the pace it prefers. The floor shifts beneath your shoes in small, and patient movements. The walls give an occasional wooden creak somewhere nearby. A latch clicks, followed by the faint murmur of a passenger asking whether the heat can be lowered. You remain in your compartment while the city thins into scattered lights. The shaded lamp above your seat gives the room a calm amber glow. Its brass stem is warm when you touch it. The curtain beside the corridor hangs straight for a moment, then sways as the carriage rounds a distant curve. The space is modest, yet almost everything has more than one purpose. The seat will become part of your bed. The wall contains hidden storage. The little table folds away. Even the mirror conceals a shallow cabinet, because railway designers appear to believe that no surface should be allowed a single, peaceful occupation. You open the cabinet and find a small glass, a wrapped bar of soap, and a clean towel. A narrow wash basin folds down from the wall. Water arrives through two metal taps, one marked hot and the other cold. Although the hot water seems to have received only a brief introduction to warmth, the porter passes the open doorway and asks whether you would like your berth prepared later in the evening. You choose a time, and he records it with a short pencil in a small notebook. His manner is efficient without being hurried. He knows which passengers want silence, which ones need extra blankets, and which ones will ask the same question again in 20 minutes. Historical records show that sleeping car porters perform some of the most demanding service work on the railway. They carry luggage, prepare beds, shine shoes, answer calls, manage bedding, and remain available through the night. Many are black men working long hours under strict rules, and their skill becomes central to the comfort and reputation of the American passenger trains. The dignity of the sleeping car depends upon labour that passengers do not always notice. A blanket appears neatly folded, a towel is replaced, a heavy suitcase reaches the correct compartment. Every small comfort arrives through careful effort. You hear a soft knock farther down the corridor, then the low voice of the porter explaining the difference between an upper berth and a lower berth. The lower is easier to enter. The upper offers a little more privacy from passing feet but requires confidence, balance, and a willingness to climb a ladder while wearing nightclothes. One curious footnote concerns the tiny safety nets attached to some upper berths. They are meant to keep sleeping passengers secure during sudden motion. The sight of such a net may not inspire complete trust, but it does suggest that the railway has considered the possibility of you rolling gracefully into the aisle. You leave your compartment and step into the corridor. The passage is narrow enough that two people must negotiate every meeting. A woman in a fur-trimmed coat turns sideways to let you pass. A man carrying a newspaper attempts the same manoeuvre, but forgets that his elbows require their own timetable. Everyone offers quiet apologies while the train rocks gently beneath them. Small blue night lamps glow near the floor. Polished handles catch the light. Through the window, the darkness is nearly complete, broken only by distant houses and the occasional red glow of a trackside signal. You reach the end of the carriage and pause beside the connecting door. Through its glass panel, you can see the next car swaying independently. The metal passage between them trembles and complains. Every joint seems to possess a different voice. A burst of colder air touches your face when another passenger opens the door. The sound of the wheels becomes louder, sharper, and more mechanical. For one brief moment, you feel the immense speed beneath the warmth. Steel wheels strike rail joints in a repeating pattern. The couplings pull and relax. The whole train lives through tension, balance, and motion. You return to the quieter centre of the sleeping car. A young mother sits beside an open compartment, holding a drowsy child against her shoulder. Across the aisle, an elderly man has already changed into slippers and appears deeply satisfied with this decision. He reads beneath a small lamp, turning each page with the solemn care of someone handling official government documents. A faint fragrance of cold cream and lavender powder drifts from one room. From another comes the scent of peppermint candy. The train gathers these private smells and blends them with warm fabric, soap, and polished wood. No agreement has been reached on whether sleeping car design of this period truly favours comfort or merely creates an impressive illusion of it. Some historians praise the clever use of limited space. Others point to narrow beds, thin walls, and complicated ladders. You may decide that the truth rests somewhere between luxury and athletic challenge. You sit once more and examine the wool blanket folded above you. It is thick, slightly rough, and edged with a dark stitched border. Beneath it waits a clean white sheet, pressed so firmly that it could probably stand without assistance. The heating pipes give a quiet metallic knock. You turn the control slightly, nothing changes. You turn it again. The compartment becomes warmer several minutes later, possibly because of your effort, possibly because the train has entered a milder patch of weather, and possibly because the railway has chosen to reward patience. Outside, the snow thickens against the glass. The flakes appear briefly in the light from each passing crossing, then disappear into blackness. A farmhouse window glows on a distant slope. A road follows the tracks for a little while before bending away. The porter returns, carrying fresh linen over one arm. He moves with easy balance, adjusting to every sway before it happens. You watch him enter an empty compartment, lower the hidden bed, secure its supports, and smooth the sheets with quick, practiced movements. The transformation is almost theatrical. A sitting room becomes a bedroom, cushions disappear, Pillows arrive, curtains are drawn. The space grows softer and more private with every motion. Soon your own room will change in the same way. For now, you keep the seat upright and let the journey remain part of the evening. You place your book on the table, but do not open it. The shifting view is enough. Dark trees gather close to the track, snow rests on their branches, the glass reflects your face, the lamp, and the quiet compartment behind you. The sleeping car continues onward, carrying dozens of small private worlds through the winter night. Each traveller has a destination, a worry, a hope, or perhaps only a desire for several uninterrupted hours of sleep. You settle deeper into the seat. The blanket waits above, the rails sing below, warm air circles through the narrow room, and the steady motion begins to loosen the thoughts you brought aboard. The city loosens around you one district at a time. Outside the window, rows of brick houses stand close together beneath steep white roofs. Their back gardens are narrow, their fences half buried, and their kitchen windows glow with the last activity of the evening. A woman draws a curtain, a man carries coal from a shed. Somewhere, a radio plays behind frosted glass, too distant for you to hear, yet easy to imagine. The train moves beside streets that seem to race alongside for a few moments. Cars crawl through the snow, their headlights dimmed by the falling flakes. A bus pauses beneath a street lamp while bundled passengers step carefully onto the pavement. Then the road turns away, and the train continues alone. Factories rise beyond the houses. Tall chimneys stand against the cloudy sky, some still release smoke, which spreads low over the rooftops because the winter air is heavy. Rows of windows shine along the upper floors, revealing late shifts at work. You catch brief views of machinery, overhead lamps, and figures moving between long work tables. In 1959, manufacturing remains a powerful part of life across the northeastern United States. Factories produce electrical goods, machinery, clothing, chemicals, tools, and countless household items. Their whistles organize neighborhoods, their payroll support families, their smoke, less romantically, settles on windowsills and laundry. You pass a yard filled with freight cars. Snow lies across their roofs, but their sides remain dark with soot and yews. Some carry timber, others hold grain, coal, machinery, or packaged goods. The passenger train glides among them like a well-dressed guest moving through a busy kitchen. A switching engine waits beneath a tower, its headlamp glowing through the storm. A railway worker stands on the rear step, wrapped in a thick coat. One hand gripping the rail, he gives a signal with his lantern. The engine answers with a short movement coupling to a line of cars with a deep metal thud. Signal towers appear at intervals beside the track. Inside one, an operator watches rows of levers and illuminated panels. His room is warm, but the windows shake whenever a train passes. He controls switches that guide traffic through a complicated meeting of rails. A wrong movement could delay several trains, so every handle, bell, and light matters. Records confirm that many railways still depend on human operators in towers during this period, even as automatic signalling grows more advanced. The system combines electrical equipment with practiced judgment. Men study timetables, exchange messages, and watch the tracks with the attention of chess players, except their pieces weigh hundreds of tons. The train crosses a steel bridge over a canal or narrow river. Black water moves beneath plates of floating ice. Warehouses line both banks, their loading platforms empty now. A crane stands frozen above a barge, its long arm raised like a patient bird. You feel the wheels change their sound on the bridge. The rhythm becomes louder and more hollow. The carriage trembles beneath you, then settles again as the train reaches solid ground. A curious detail of urban railway life is the number of small structures built for very specific purposes. There are huts for track workers, sheds for tools, cabins for crossing guards, towers for signals, and tiny offices for clerks. Some are hardly larger than garden sheds. Yet each carries an official sign and a stove that probably works only when treated with great respect. Beyond the industrial yards, the houses begin to spread apart. Apartment blocks give way to two-storey homes with porches, snow covers bicycles walled, garden chairs, and clotheslines. A dog runs along a fence, barking at the train as though this nightly event has personally offended him. His voice vanishes behind you, but his determination deserves admiration. The streets become quieter. Corner shops stand closed beneath striped awnings. A pharmacy sign glows red at an intersection. A diner remains open, its windows bright with steam. You glimpse 3 customers at the counter and a waitress carrying a coffee pot. For them, the train is only a passing sound. For you, their small room becomes a complete world for several seconds. You imagine the warmth of the grill and the smell of coffee, the scrape of a stool, and the sleepy conversation of people who work when most of the city rests. The railway climbs gradually. From the higher track, you look back across neighbourhoods fading under snow. Chimneys, towers, water tanks, and factory roofs merge into a soft grey distance. The storm hides sharp edges. Even the largest buildings appear temporary, as though they might dissolve before morning. Scholars continue to debate whether the industrial city of the 1950s should be remembered mainly for economic security, or for the deep inequalities hidden beneath that prosperity. Stable factory work supports many households, yet access to good jobs, housing, and safe neighbourhoods is far from equal. The glowing windows do not reveal every private difficulty. You notice the contrast in the landscape itself. Some streets display new cars and broad lawns, others stand beside noisy yards and smoking plants. Some houses have fresh paint, others lean toward the tracks, their porches patched and their windows dark. The train does not stop to explain these differences, it simply carries you past them. A final cluster of factories appears beside the line. Their furnaces cast an orange glow upon the falling snow, pipes cross overhead. A night guard walks between buildings, leaving a trail of footprints that begins to disappear almost at once. Then the structures grow smaller. Freight sidings end, telegraph poles continue, but warehouses give way to open lots and frozen marshland. The last streetlights stand far apart. Snow gathers untouched between clumps of grass. You press your fingertips lightly against the cool window. Behind the glass, the city remains as a pale brightness beneath the clouds. Ahead, the darkness feels wider. Trees begin to gather near the rails. Their branches bow beneath the weight of snow, and their trunks flash past in the beam of the locomotive. The wheels maintain their steady pace. No horn sound from crowded crossings now. No factory windows shine beside the track. Only a distant farmhouse lamp appears across the fields, small and calm beneath the storm. The overnight express carries you beyond the final edge of the city, where roads grow empty, roofs become rare, and the snowy land opens quietly into the night. A steward appears at your compartment door and announces that the dining car is serving a late supper. His voice is low and polished, carrying the quiet authority of someone who understands that hunger may arrive at inconvenient hours. You follow him through the narrow corridor. The connecting passage shakes beneath your feet. Metal plates shift with each curve, and cold air slips through the joints before the next door closes behind you. Then the atmosphere changes. The dining car glows beneath shaded ceiling lamps. White tablecloths cover rows of small tables. Silverware rests in careful lines beside folded napkins. Water glasses tremble almost invisibly as the train moves. Dark wood panels reflect the warm light, giving the room the appearance of a private club travelling through a snowstorm. A waiter guides you to a table beside the window. You sit across from an empty chair. Though the railway may place another passenger there if space becomes limited, dining car customs encourage strangers to share tables, conversation, and the occasional silent disagreement over who should receive the final bread roll. A small vase stands between the place settings. Inside it rests a single artificial flower, bright enough to survive every season and sensible enough not to complain about the motion. The menu is printed on thick paper. You read choices that feel both comforting and grand: roast beef with potatoes, broiled fish, chicken with vegetables, soup, salad, warm rolls, pie and coffee. The prices appear modest to modern eyes, but they represent a meaningful expense for many travellers in 1959. You choose a light supper of chicken, mashed potatoes, peas, and a slice of apple pie. The waiter writes your order in a small pad. He does not lean against the table, despite the swaying floor. He remains perfectly balanced, as though the movement of the train is merely a rumour. Dining car crews perform their work inside an unusually difficult kitchen. Pots must be secured, dishes must be stacked carefully. Hot liquids must travel through narrow aisles while the carriage rocks over switches and curves. A cook prepares meals beside metal surfaces that may suddenly shift beneath him, which makes an ordinary kitchen seem almost embarrassingly stable. Railway records show that major American passenger trains often advertise their dining service as part of the journey itself. Freshly prepared meals, linen cloths, polished silver, and attentive service help distinguish rail travel from buses, automobiles, and the rapidly expanding airline industry. The presentation carries a message. You're not merely being fed, you're being reminded that travel can possess ceremony. A basket of warm rolls arrives first. You take one and break it open. Steam rises from the soft centre. Butter melts across it slowly, filling the air with a rich, familiar scent. Outside the window, snow sweeps past in silver streaks, and this darkness beyond the glass makes the table feel even warmer. 2 passengers are seated across the aisle. One is a salesman with a narrow tie and a leather sample case tucked beneath his chair. The other is a school teacher travelling to visit her sister. Their conversation begins politely with the weather, as many conversations do when people need a safe bridge between silence and curiosity. The salesman says the roads will be terrible by morning. The teacher replies that trains do not have to shovel driveways. This settles the matter. Your soup arrives in a heavy china bowl bearing the railway emblem. The bowl is warm beneath your hands. The broth carries the scent of celery, pepper, and slow-cooked vegetables. Oddly enough, railway china often becomes highly prized by collectors. Plates once exposed to gravy, coffee rings, and impatient travellers may later sit behind glass as treasured objects. It seems that enough time can transform almost any dinner plate into history. You lift the spoon carefully as the carriage sways. A gentle curve tilts the soup toward one side of the bowl. You adjust without thinking. Everyone in the dining car does the same. Bodies lean, glasses quiver, and forks pause briefly above plates. Then the track straightens, and the pause continues. From the kitchen comes the soft clatter of dishes and the short hiss of a grill. The air smells of coffee, roasted meat, warm bread, and faint coal smoke carried in from the outer doors. The main course arrives beneath a polished metal cover. The waiter lifts it with a small flourish. The chicken is golden at the edges. The potatoes hold a pool of gravy. Bright green peas roll slightly whenever the train changes speed, displaying far more enthusiasm for travel than the rest of the meal. You eat slowly. Each bite feels more satisfying because of the cold landscape beyond the window. Snow covers low fields and distant fences. A farmhouse appears for a moment, one upstairs window shining beneath the roof, then it is gone. The dining car creates a strange intimacy. People who will never meet again pass bread, exchange newspapers, and comment upon the storm. A child at the far end of the carriage tries to drink milk without spilling it. His mother watches with the tense concentration of someone observing a dangerous experiment. The glass survives. Some historians argue over whether dining cars represent genuine democratic gathering places or carefully staged social spaces that are shaped by class, race, and railway rules. Passengers may share tables across occupations and regions, yet access to comfort is never equally distributed. On some routes, racial discrimination determines where people may sit and how they are served. The white cloth beneath your hands, therefore, carries more than elegance. It belongs to a wider society with clear boundaries, even when the warm lamps make the room seem separate from the world. The waiter returns with coffee in a thick cup. You add cream and watch pale clouds turn through the dark liquid. The cup rattles softly against its saucer. The sound blends with low conversation and the measured beat of the wheels. Apple pie follows. Its crust breaks beneath your fork. Cinnamon rises with the steam, sweet and warm. A small scoop of vanilla ice cream softens beside it, slowly surrendering to the heat. Outside, the storm grows denser. The glass now reflects the dining car more clearly than the countryside. Tables, lamps, passengers, and white cloths float over the black window like a second train moving beside you. You finish the last bite and place your fork gently on the plate. The waiter brings the bill on a small tray. You leave payment and a tip, then stand carefully as the carriage sways beneath you. At the doorway, you look back once. Coffee cups shine beneath the lamps. New plates emerge from the kitchen. Quiet voices continue among strangers. The late supper carries on through the snow, graceful, temporary, and warm. You step into the connecting passage with cinnamon still on your tongue and the steady movement of the express beneath your feet. The lounge car feels looser than the dining room, less formal and more willing to let the night wander. You enter beneath a row of soft lamps and find deep chairs arranged beside broad windows. A small bar stands at one end, its shelves fitted with metal rails so that bottles remain obedient during sudden curves. A card table occupies the opposite corner. Ashtrays rest on nearly every armrest, because in 1959 smoke is treated almost like another passenger, always present and rarely questioned. A few travellers sit apart, but most have drifted into quiet conversation. You choose a chair near the centre of the car. Across from you sits a woman in a navy dress with a pearl pin at her collar. She is travelling to visit her daughter, who has recently moved into a new house near Rochester. She speaks with pride about the kitchen, the washing machine, and the large refrigerator, then admits that the neighbourhood still has no proper shade trees. Beside her, a man in a grey suit folds his newspaper into careful quarters. He sells office equipment and spends most weeks travelling between cities. His leather case contains catalogues, order forms, and several pens that he insists are nearly impossible to lose. One pen is already missing. Near the window, a young couple shares a map across their knees. They are newly married and heading toward a small lakeside town where the husband has accepted work in a factory. The wife keeps tracing the route with one finger, as though the thin printed line might reveal the shape of their future. You listen without intruding. The train creates a temporary community. People speak because the night is long, because the weather has slowed the world outside, and because strangers are sometimes easier to trust than neighbours. Conversation can begin with snow and end with marriage, work, health, or disappointment. A waiter moves through the car carrying cups of coffee and small glasses of ginger ale. He places each drink on a square paper coaster. The coasters carry the railway name in blue ink, turning an ordinary table into a tiny advertisement. Records confirm that passenger trains remain important meeting places for business travellers, families, students, soldiers, and tourists during this period. The social mix can be broad, but comfort depends heavily on the ticket purchased, the route taken, and the rules enforced by each railway. A retired nurse sits beside you and begins describing her years in a city hospital. She remembers crowded wards during winter influenza seasons. She remembers families waiting beside public telephones for news. She remembers doctors who could be kind, doctors who could be difficult, and one surgeon who refused to operate unless someone first found his favourite fountain pen. The story attracts the attention of the salesman. He offers to sell the surgeon a replacement. The nurse smiles and says the surgeon died 3 years ago. The salesman quietly returns to his newspaper. At the card table, 2 men and a woman begin a game of bridge. They speak in low voices, placing each card with careful precision. One man taps the table when he thinks. The woman raises one eyebrow whenever he taps too long. A curious footnote of railway etiquette concerns card games played among strangers. Passengers sometimes join a table without knowing one another and continue for hours. sharing snacks and opinions while revealing almost nothing personal. A railway journey can produce close companionship with remarkably little introduction. You turn towards the windows. Snow gathers along the lower edge of the glass. Beyond it, dark farmland slips past in wide, silent stretches. Fence posts rise from the white ground like short black marks on a blank page. Every few minutes, a road crossing appears beneath a lamp, then vanishes. The young wife with the map asks the retired nurse whether Rochester feels too large for a small-town girl. The nurse considers the question. She says a city is only many small places pressed together. A church basement, a bakery, a hospital corridor, a street where children know which house gives the best sweets at the end of October. The answer seems to comfort her. You hear the low murmur of a radio from the service area. The signal fades in and out as the train moves. For several seconds, a popular song becomes clear, followed by a weather report warning of heavy accumulation across the region. No one looks surprised. The man in the grey suit says forecasters always predict snow after everyone can already see it falling. His remark earns a few tired smiles. Conversation shifts toward the changing country. A college student with a crew cut speaks about new highways spreading across the landscape. He believes automobiles will soon make most passenger trains unnecessary. The woman with the pearl pin disagrees. She says no sensible person wants to drive through a storm when a porter can carry the luggage and someone else can watch the road. Their disagreement remains polite, though neither yields. Scholars remain divided over whether the late 1950s represent a confident age of shared prosperity or a period of deep tension hidden beneath polished surfaces. Many families enjoy rising incomes and new household comforts, yet discrimination, unequal wages, and limited opportunity shape daily life for millions. You can sense both stories in the lounge car. The young couple speak hopefully about steady work, but they worry about rent. The nurse receives a pension, but it is smaller than she expected. The salesman travels constantly, yet fears that newer machines may make his products less useful. Even comfort carries uncertainty. At the far end of the car, a black schoolteacher reads a book beneath a lamp. He joins the conversation only when someone mentions education. His voice is calm, and his words are precise. He explains that many children still attend poorly funded schools, especially in communities where law and custom maintain separation. The room grows quieter. The salesman folds his newspaper again, though it is already folded. The teacher does not raise his voice. He simply describes crowded classrooms, worn books, and talented students expected to succeed with fewer resources. His account settles among the passengers more heavily than the weather report. The nurse asks what subject he teaches. History, he says. The answer feels fitting. A bell sounds softly from the corridor, announcing the final service of the evening. Cups are collected. The bridge players finish their hand. The young couple fold their map along its worn creases. One by one, passengers rise and return to their rooms. You remain seated for a few minutes longer. The lounge car is almost empty now. Smoke thins beneath the lamps. The abandoned newspaper lies across a chair. Outside, the snow continues covering roads, fields, and rooftops with the same quiet patience. The people around you carry separate lives, each shaped by work, family, hope, and rules they did not create. For one winter night, their paths share the same steel line through the dark. The river appears beside the train without announcement. At first, you notice only a wider darkness beyond the glass. Then moonlight filters through the clouds, pale and uncertain, and the Hudson reveals itself beneath the falling snow. The water stretches broad and black between the wooded hills, carrying broken reflections of lamps, signals, and distant houses. You move along its eastern bank, close enough at times to see thin shelves of ice gathering near the shore. Snow settles upon fallen branches and stone walls. Small coves lie still beneath a white covering, while the main channel remains open and restless. The river does not look like a road, yet for centuries it has served as one. Long before railway tracks followed its edge, boats carried people, timber, grain, tool, and news between inland settlements and the coast. Towns grew where vessels could land, warehouses rose beside docks, ferries crossed from one bank to the other, linking farms, markets, and families. Now the express joins that old northward path. Records confirm that the New York Central Railway promoted this route as part of its famous water-level journey, following river valleys and low ground rather than forcing trains over steep mountain grades. The claim was partly practical and partly advertising. Passengers liked the idea of speed without dramatic climbing, and railway companies were never shy about presenting geography as a personal achievement. The carriage enters a long curve. Ahead, the locomotive throws a faint glow across the snow. The windows of the train bend into view, each one shining briefly before the curve straightens. For a moment, you see the express as a moving chain of warm rooms suspended between the river and the hills. On the opposite bank, dark cliffs rise from the water. Snow clings to ledges and bare trees. A few lights mark houses set high above the river, though the storm makes them appear farther away than they are. A tugboat moves slowly in the channel. Its lamps form a small cluster in the darkness. Smoke trails from its stack and vanishes into the low clouds. You cannot hear its engine through the glass, but you can imagine the deep vibration travelling through the hull. Near the shore, an old dock reaches into the water. Its posts are coated with ice. A wooden shed leans beneath the weight of snow. Perhaps unused for years, the railway rushes past, and the lonely structure slips into darkness. Oddly enough, the Hudson once supported a large ice-cutting industry. Workers carved blocks from frozen sections of the river and stored them in insulated houses for use during warmer months. Long before electric refrigerators became common, winter cold could be harvested, stacked and sold, and delivered like any other product. You picture men working upon the frozen coves beneath grey skies. Saws bite through thick ice, horses pull loaded sledges, blocks slide along wooden ramps into enormous storehouses packed with sawdust. By 1959, such work belongs mainly to memory. Refrigerators hum in suburban kitchens, and the old ice houses stand empty or have disappeared. The river keeps the marks of many vanished occupations, though snow makes every ruin look briefly complete. The train passes through a small riverside town. A station platform lies beneath two lamps. No passengers wait there. A baggage cart stands beside the wall, its wheels half buried. The station sign is almost hidden by blowing snow, but the building remains prepared, as though someone might appear at any moment with a suitcase and urgent plan nets. Beyond it, a church steeple rises above clustered roofs. A few automobiles sit along the main street. Their rounded shapes soften beneath the accumulating white. The town is gone within seconds. You begin to understand how railway travel alters distance. A place may contain hundreds of lives, decades of memory, and streets known in perfect detail by those who live there. From the window it becomes three lamps, a steeple, and a name passing too quickly to hold. The river widens again. Wind drives snow across its surface in pale sheets. Some flakes strike the glass and cling for a moment, revealing delicate branches of ice, then melt into clear drops that slide downward. The compartment light reflects behind you, but you lower the shade slightly so the outside view grows stronger. Darkness sharpens. The water takes shape. The hills become deep masses beneath the clouds. Scholars bicker over how much the Hudson Valley landscape should be understood as natural beauty, and how much as a place reshaped by commerce, industry, and transportation. Paintings often present noble mountains, glowing skies, and peaceful water. Yet railways, quarries, factories, docks, and settlements have long altered the same scene. Both truths rest outside your window. The cliffs remain impressive, so do the bridges, retaining walls, signal lines, and tracks cut into the shoreline. Nature and machinery do not stand apart here. They meet, compete, and sometimes produce a strange harmony. A freight train approaches on the neighbouring line. Its headlamp grows from a distant point into a brilliant white circle. The sound reaches you through the carriage wall, a deep rushing force. Then the engines pass with a roar, followed by boxcars, tank cars, and covered hoppers. Snow spins wildly between the two trains. For several seconds, your window fills with moving steel. Wheels hammer the rails, dark cars flash past so quickly that their markings blur into colour and shadow. Then silence returns. The river remains beside you, calm and immense, as though the freight train never existed. Farther north, the hills draw closer to the water. Bare branches arch above the tracks. Rock faces stand only a few yards from the carriage, their surfaces glazed with ice. Small waterfalls have frozen into white columns, catching the light from the windows. You feel the temperature through the glass, a steady cold pressing against the warmth inside. A bell rings faintly in the distance. Perhaps it belongs to a crossing, perhaps to a town hidden among the trees. The sound reaches you only in imagination, carried by the view rather than the air. The Hudson continues beneath the storm, guiding the express through a landscape of water, stone, forest, and scattered human light. You rest your head against the seat and watch the river hold its dark course through the snowy night. The porter returns with fresh linen folded over one arm and a narrow ladder balanced against his shoulder. His footsteps are nearly silent, even though the carriage continues to sway beneath him. He pauses at your compartment and asks whether you are ready for the bed to be prepared. You stand and step into the corridor. The porter enters the room, closes the door halfway, and begins his work with practiced speed. The broad seat cushion lifts from its frame. Hidden catches release with small metal clicks. A panel lowers from the wall, revealing the sleeping berth tucked above the compartment like a secret shelf. You watch from the doorway as the space changes shape. The daytime room begins to disappear. Cushions are stacked, supports are locked, and a narrow mattress settles into position. The porter spreads a white sheet across it, pulling each corner tight. His hands move in a calm sequence that seems almost musical. Fold, smooth, tuck, check. Nothing is wasted. The train rounds a bend, but he barely shifts his feet. A pillow emerges from a linen cupboard. Then comes a thick blanket, dark blue with a narrow stitched edge. He shakes it once, lets it fall evenly across the mattress, and folds the upper corner back with a precision that would make an army inspector feel pleasantly unnecessary. Railway records confirm that sleeping car porters often work through long nights with little rest. They prepare berths, carry bags, answer bells, wake passengers, and manage countless personal requests. Their labour helps create the polished image of luxury that railway companies advertise. Even though the men themselves often face low wages, discrimination, and dependence upon tips. You notice the porter's uniform. The jacket is neat, the shoes polished, the cap held level. The appearance suggests effortless order. But the work is physical and constant. Heavy bedding must be lifted, narrow spaces must be managed. Passengers may call at any hour for water, towels, medicine, or help finding a misplaced ticket. The porter checks the window latch. He tests the small reading lamp above the berth. He places a folded towel near the wash basin and sets a paper envelope on the shelf for your clothing. Every object is positioned where a sleepy traveller might reach it without confusion. A curious custom involves the wake-up call. Passengers tell the porter when they need to rise, and he writes each request in his notebook. At the proper time, he knocks gently or calls through the curtain. The entire morning schedule may depend upon one man remembering dozens of names, destinations, and preferred waking times. You tell him when you expect to wake. He repeats the time and marks it down. Then he points to a small strap beside the mattress. It can be fastened across the berth for added security. The train usually moves smoothly, but curves and sudden stops do not always respect sleep. The strap offers reassurance, although it also gives the bed the appearance of preparing for a modest ocean voyage. You step closer. The berth is narrower than an ordinary bed, yet it looks inviting. Clean linen carries the faint scent of soap and warm cotton. The pillow is firm, the blanket feels rough beneath your fingers, but its weight promises warmth. The porter lowers the shade over the window, leaving a small gap at the bottom. Snowlight glimmers through it whenever the train passes a signal or a lamp beside the track. He shows you the call button. One press will summon assistance. You suspect that pressing it merely to ask whether you are truly asleep would be considered poor form. The porter gathers the unused cushions and places them in a storage compartment. He checks the ladder, gives the berth one final glance, and steps into the corridor. You thank him. He nods, wishes you a peaceful night, and continues to the next compartment, where another passenger is waiting with a coat, a newspaper, and a deeply concerned expression about the upper berth. Arguments split among historians over whether sleeping car service should be remembered mainly as a triumph of hospitality or as an example of unequal labour hidden behind elegance. The comfort is real, so is the skill. Yet the gracious atmosphere depends upon workers whose burdens remain easy for passengers to overlook. You stand alone in the transformed room. The walls feel closer now. The mattress occupies most of the space, and the little lamp creates a small circle of gold against the wood panelling. The corridor sounds become softer behind the closed door. You change into your night clothes carefully, using one hand against the wall whenever the carriage sways. The train chooses this moment to cross a series of switches. The floor shifts left, then right, then left again, as if testing your balance for private amusement. Your shoes rest near the door. You fold your clothes and place them on the shelf. The cold mirror shows a tired face, softened by lamplight. You wash your hands with water that begins cold, becomes warm for several hopeful seconds, and then returns to cold without explanation. At last you climb into the berth. The mattress gives slightly beneath your weight. The blanket settles across your legs. You fasten the safety strap loosely, not because you expect disaster, but because the porter recommended it, and the porter clearly understands this moving world better than you do. The train sounds different from the bed. The wheels are closer now, their rhythm travelling through the frame and into the mattress. Each rail joint produces a soft repeating beat. Metal murmurs beneath the floor. Wood creaks near your shoulder, somewhere farther along the car. A door opens and closes. The berth moves gently from side to side. At first, you notice every motion. A curve presses you toward the wall. A stretch of straight track lets you settle again. A brief slowing causes the blanket to slide a fraction toward your feet. Then the movements begin to blend together. You lift the edge of the shade and look outside. Snow flies past in the darkness. Telegraph poles appear at regular intervals, each one illuminated for a second by the train lights. A lonely farmhouse sits beyond a field, its porch lamp glowing beneath a white roof. You lower the shade. The compartment is now a private pocket of warmth carried through the storm. The linen remains cool near your face, and the blanket grows warmer around you. The lamp casts a quiet shadow along the ceiling. You reach for the switch and turn the light off. Darkness settles gently. The wheels continue their patient rhythm beneath the narrow bed, and the train carries you onward while the porter moves through the sleeping car, turning seats into bedrooms one careful compartment at a time. In the darkness beyond the glass, the railway speaks through lights. A green signal appears far ahead, small and steady against the snow. It grows brighter as the express approaches, then sweeps past the window and disappears behind you. For a few moments, its colour lingers in your vision, floating in the blackness like a quiet promise that the track ahead is clear. You lie beneath the blanket and listen as the wheels strike the rails in an even pattern. The sound is softer here, almost like a clock hidden beneath the mattress. Each turn of the wheels carries you deeper into the countryside, where stations become smaller and the spaces between them grow longer. Another signal waits beside the line. This one burns yellow. The train begins to slow. You feel the change before you hear it. The pull of the locomotive eases, the rhythm beneath you stretches farther apart. Somewhere along the train, metal couplings settle with a series of muffled knocks. A yellow signal warns the engineer to prepare for a possible stop. The exact meaning depends upon the railway and the arrangement of the track, but the message is always treated with care. Speed must be reduced, attention must sharpen. The night may look empty, yet another train, an open switch, or a station movement may lie ahead. Records confirm that signal systems in 1959 combine coloured lights, track circuits, written rules, and constant human judgment. Electrical equipment can detect whether a section of track is occupied, but the engineer must read each indication correctly and respond without delay. You imagine the cab at the front of the train. The engineer sits behind dark windows, watching the rails enter the beam of the headlamp. Snow swirls toward the glass, gauges glow on the control panel. His hand rests near the throttle while the fireman or second crew member watches the opposite side. Every signal is studied. Every unusual sound matters. The sleeping passengers may surrender to the rhythm, but the crew remains alert. The express passes a crossing where a red lamp flashes above the road. A bell rings outside, though the window reduces it to a faint metallic pulse. An automobile waits behind the lowered gate, its headlights illuminating snowbanks and bare trees. The driver sits alone, perhaps returning from work, perhaps carrying medicine home, perhaps wondering why the longest train in the world has chosen this particular moment to pass. Car after car moves across the road, then the final carriage clears the crossing, the gate rises, and the automobile continues into the storm. Farther along, a small signal cabin stands beside a junction. Light shines through its windows. Inside, an operator works among levers, telephones, and rows of labelled switches. A stovepipe rises through the roof, trailing a thin thread of smoke. Oddly enough, railway workers sometimes develop personal names for difficult switches, unreliable lamps, and stubborn pieces of machinery. A lever that refuses to move in cold weather may earn a title far less polite than the name painted on the official diagram. The express glides through the junction. You hear wheels cross several points in rapid succession. The carriage shifts from side to side. The pattern becomes a brief clattering storm beneath you, then smooths again as the train settles onto the main line. Telegraph poles march beside the track. Their dark arms hold wires that sag between them under a coating of snow. In daylight they might seem ordinary, but at night they resemble a silent procession disappearing into the distance. For generations, those wires carry messages about train movements, weather, freight, emergencies, and business. Operators tap information from one station to another, helping coordinate a network too large for any single person to see. By 1959, telephone and radio systems are increasingly important, yet telegraph equipment still survives in many railway offices. Old and new methods overlap because railway companies rarely abandon useful machinery merely because something shinier has appeared. A white board beside the line flashes past. Then comes a whistle post, a simple sign instructing the engineer to sound the horn for a crossing. A moment later, the locomotive gives a long call into the night. The sound reaches back along the train. It begins strong and clear, then fades across fields and wooded slopes. Somewhere in a farmhouse bedroom, a sleeper may hear it and know the time without looking at a clock. A lonely crossing keeper's hut appears beneath a lamp. The structure is barely larger than a cupboard. A man stands in the doorway wearing a heavy coat and holding a lantern. He watches the train pass, his face visible for only a second. The railway is full of people who spend their nights waiting for other people to move safely through the darkness. Scholars remain divided over whether automatic signalling reduces human error or simply changes the kind of mistakes that become possible. Machines can provide consistency, yet equipment may fail, weather may interfere, and rules may be misunderstood. Safety depends upon technology, training, discipline, and the willingness to treat every warning seriously. A red signal glows on a parallel track. Your train continues, but another line remains closed to movement. Perhaps a freight train waits beyond the curve. Perhaps a switch is not yet set. The red lamp does not explain itself. It simply commands obedience. Snow falls more heavily now. The headlamp catches the flakes ahead, creating a rushing tunnel of white. Trackside signs emerge suddenly from the storm and vanish just as quickly. Mileposts, speedboards, and junction markers pass like brief messages written for the crew alone. You lift the shade a little higher. A station platform appears with no building beside it, only a shelter and a single lamp. The snow lies untouched across the boards. No passenger waits. The train does not slow. Soon the light is gone. The compartment grows dark again except for the faint glow beneath the door. You release the shade and let it fall. The signals continue outside of green, yellow, and red, each carrying a precise instruction through the winter night. They guide the express from one protected stretch of track to another, forming an invisible chain of permission and caution. Beneath your blanket, you feel the train gather speed once more. The wheels resume their steady measure. Far ahead, another green light waits in the snow, holding the darkness open for you. A gentle pressure draws you from the edge of sleep. The wheels no longer race beneath the berth. Their steady rhythm has slowed into separate, measured turns. Couplings settle with soft knocks along the train, and the faint hiss of brakes travels through the darkness like air escaping from a distant pipe. You raise the window shade. Albany waits beneath a low roof of cloud and falling snow. The railway yard spreads across the night in rows of shining track. Lamps stand above switches and platforms, each surrounded by a pale circle of storm. Snow covers idle coaches, baggage carts, signal boxes, and the roofs of small service buildings. Steam drifts between them, sometimes hiding the view entirely. The express moves slowly through this maze. Track workers appear beside the line in heavy coats, their lanterns swinging near their knees. One man bends to examine a switch. Another stands near a telephone box, watching your train pass with the calm attention of someone who trusts machinery only after looking at it himself. The carriage crosses several points, rocking gently from one rail to another. Beneath you comes a careful series of clicks and clatters. The sound is not harsh at this speed. It resembles a box of tools being sorted in another room. Then the platform roof appears. Albany Station glows with late-night activity. Porters wait beside stacks of luggage. Mail clerks stand near canvas sacks piled upon wheeled carts. Passengers gather beneath the lamps, wrapped in scarves, hats, and long winter coats. The train stops with a final quiet pull. For a moment, the sleeping car becomes perfectly still. The absence of motion feels almost unnatural. Your body expects the familiar sway and notices its disappearance immediately. The berth seems firmer. The blanket no longer shifts. Even the small metal fittings fall silent. A door opens at the end of the carriage. Cold air enters the corridor. It carries the scent of snow, damp wool, smoke, and the sharp mineral smell of a large railway station. Voices rise beneath the roof, clear enough now to reach your compartment. A conductor calls the station name. Passengers begin to move. A woman in a dark coat steps down with a round hat box held carefully against her chest. A man follows with 2 suitcases and the worried expression of someone who suspects he has forgotten a third. Another traveller boards carrying a folded umbrella already covered with snow. Railway timetables show that Albany serves as a major junction where routes from New York City, Western New York, New England, and Canada meet. Trains change crews, exchange passengers, transfer mail, and connect with services moving in several directions. The stop is not merely a pause, it is a complicated act of coordination. Outside your window, a baggage cart rolls past, its small wheels rattle across the platform joints. A porter walks beside it, keeping one gloved hand on a stack of cases that appears determined to lean toward freedom. Mail sacks follow. They are loaded and unloaded with remarkable speed. Letters written in city apartments, farm kitchens, offices, Military posts and college rooms travel together through the night. Some contain business orders, some carry family news, some hold apologies delayed too long. A postal clerk checks labels beneath a lamp. Snow lands on his shoulders and melts into the dark cloth. He does not seem to notice. One peculiar detail of railway mail service is that clerks may sort letters while the train is moving, placing each piece into the correct pouch for towns along the route. A postal car can function like a travelling post office, complete with sorting racks, locked compartments, and workers who must read addresses while the floor sways beneath them. An envelope with poor handwriting presents enough difficulty at a quiet desk. On a moving train, it becomes a personal challenge from a stranger. You ease out of the berth and pull on your robe. The corridor is brighter now. Several compartment doors stand open. A child peers toward the platform while his father struggles with a scarf. An elderly woman asks the porter whether there is time to purchase a cup of tea. The porter advises against leaving the train. His tone suggests that many hopeful passengers have tested the limits of a station stop and discovered that locomotives are not sentimental. Through the opposite window, you see another train waiting beneath the roof. Its coaches are darker and shorter. A few passengers cross the platform between the two services, guided by conductors and station staff. A man runs toward it, carrying a newspaper above his head. The newspaper offers little protection. Still, hope is a respected tradition. Farther down the platform, a dining counter remains open. Metal stools line the front. A waitress pours coffee for a policeman and two railway workers. Behind them, glass cases display sandwiches, slices of pie, and pastries whose exact age cannot be determined from this distance, as a large clock hangs above the concourse entrance. Its face is bright, and its hands announce an hour when sensible buildings should be asleep. Yet the station remains awake because the railway never experiences night in quite the ordinary way. Somewhere, a train is always arriving, somewhere else, one is being prepared to leave. Historians still disagree about whether grand urban stations should be understood mainly as monuments to public movement or as commercial gateways designed to organise people by class, destination and ticket. Their waiting rooms may welcome crowds beneath impressive ceilings, but separate lounges and unequal accommodations reveal clear social boundaries. Even at this quiet hour, the station contains many different journeys. A businessman hurries toward a connecting train. A soldier embraces an older couple near a pillar. A mother adjusts a blanket around a sleeping child. Two railway workers share a joke beside a luggage cart, their laughter briefly rising above the steam. You return to the window and watch snow blowing beneath the platform roof. Some flakes melt on the warm sides of the train. Others settle on the tracks, only to vanish when steam passes over them. A whistle sounds near the front. Doors begin to close. The conductor checks his watch, then raises a lantern. Another employee answers from farther down the platform. The signals are exchanged with practiced simplicity. The train gives a small backward tug, followed by a stronger pull forward. Albany begins to slide away. The counter, the clock, the waiting passengers, and the mail carts drift past your window. The platform roof ends. Open snow returns. Yard lights recede into the storm. The wheels gather their rhythm once more, carrying fresh passengers, fresh letters, and countless private purposes into the darkness. The train settles into a broader country where the horizon seems to stretch even beneath the night. Through the window, frozen farmland opens on both sides of the track. Fields lie beneath smooth layers of snow, divided by fences that appear and vanish beneath the drifts. Bare trees stand along property lines, their branches dark against the pale ground. Every few miles, a barn rises from the white distance, broad, shouldered and still. You watch the land pass in long quiet bands. A farmhouse lamp glows near a kitchen window. Smoke lifts from the chimney, bends beneath the wind, and disappears into the clouds. Somewhere inside, a family sleeps while the stove holds a little warmth against the cold. Their clocks may tremble when the express passes, though they probably no longer wake for it. The rails carry you west through country shaped by dairy farms, orchards, grain fields, and small market towns. In winter, much of the work retreats indoors, but the season never truly rests. Animals must still be fed, water must be kept from freezing, machinery must be repaired before spring. Records confirm that agriculture remained central to the economy of upstate New York in 1959, especially dairy farming. Milk must move quickly from farms to processing plants in cities, making reliable transport essential even during heavy snow. Near the track, a row of metal milk cans stands beneath the roof of a tiny platform. Their rounded lids shine faintly under a lamp. No people wait beside them. The cans appear like silent passengers with excellent posture. The train does not stop. A local service will collect such loads, while the overnight express continues toward larger stations. Railway schedules separate fast passenger travel from slower work, but both depend upon the same web of tracks, crews, and signals. A snowplow rests on a siding beside a tool shed. Its front blade forms a great wedge of steel. Angled to throw snow away from the rails, the machine looks heavy and blunt, built for argument rather than elegance. A lamp burns inside the nearby cabin, suggesting that a crew may soon be called out. Railways prepare carefully for storms, yet snow always invents new difficulties. It packs into switches, covers signals, blocks crossings, and hides defects beneath a clean white surface. Wind creates drifts where open tracks seemed clear only an hour earlier. You feel the express reduce speed. The wheels enter a region of deeper snow, producing a low rushing sound beneath the carriage. Fine powder rises along the sides and streams past the windows. For a moment, the train appears to be sailing through a pale sea. One odd rural custom concerns farmers who judge passing trains by sound. Without seeing the track, an experienced listener may identify a passenger express, a freight train, or a local service from the speed, whistle, and rhythm of the wheels. In places where the railway marks the hours, the ear becomes a second clock. A covered bridge crosses a narrow creek in the distance. Its roof carries a thick white ridge. The creek itself is mostly frozen, though a dark thread of water remains open near the centre. The train passes a cluster of houses. A general store stands at the crossroads, its front porch empty. A fuel pump leans beside the road. Snow covers a delivery truck parked behind the building. Across from it, a schoolhouse rests beneath tall maples, its windows dark and its flagpole bare. These small communities depend upon roads, railways, and personal memory. Everyone knows which family owns which farm, who recently married, whose son left for college, and which roof will need repairing when the thaw comes. From the train, you see only brief arrangements of light and shadow. A church tower, a row of mailboxes, a dog crossing an empty yard. Then open fields return. The landscape may appear peaceful, but winter life demands steady attention. A farmer wakes before dawn to milk cows. A mechanic works in an unheated shed. A family checks pipes through the night during severe cold. Snow beautifies every fence and roof, yet it also adds weight, and labour. Researchers continue to disagree over whether the 1950s represent a period of stability for family farms or the acceleration of their decline. New machinery increases production, but equipment costs rise. Larger operations gain advantages, while smaller farms struggle to compete. Prosperity and pressure often occupy the same kitchen table. You picture a farmer studying account books beneath a hanging lamp. Outside his window, the fields appear generous and endless. On paper, each acre carries costs for seed, fuel, repairs, taxes, and credit. The beauty of the land does not simplify the numbers. The express passes beneath a low bridge. Snow shakes loose from the stone edge and falls against the roof of the carriage with a soft brushing sound. You look upward, though there is nothing to see except the dim ceiling and the shadow of your blanket. A distant road runs parallel to the railway. An old pickup truck moves carefully through the storm. Its headlights bounce over ruts. keeping pace with the train for several seconds. Then the road curves south, carrying the driver towards a farm hidden behind a stand of trees. The fields grow wider. Moonlight strengthens behind the clouds, giving the snow a faint blue cast. Fence rails emerge like pencil lines. Haystacks rise under rounded coverings. Wind moves loose powder across the ground in thin, ghostly ribbons. You notice small wooden Zlepin signs beside certain fields, each painted with a family name or seed company. They pass too quickly to read, but their presence reminds you that the quiet landscape is carefully owned, measured, planted, harvested, and remembered. A barn door stands open near the track. Warm light spills across the snow. Inside, cattle shift in their stalls while a man carries a bucket between them. The sight lasts only an instant, yet the warmth seems to remain in your mind after the barn disappears. Farther west, orchards begin to appear. Rows of low trees stand evenly spaced across a slope, their branches bare and dusted with white. In summer, they will hold leaves and fruit. Tonight, they resemble dark handwriting repeated across the hillside. The train continues through the frozen farmland, passing labour hidden beneath stillness and homes held close against the cold. You sink deeper beneath the blanket. The open country glides onward under snow, calm from a distance, busy in every unseen room, while the rails carry you through the sleeping heart of winter. The night gathers around the train, but silence never truly enters. You lie beneath the blanket while the railway builds a world from sound. The wheels repeat their measured pattern below you, firm and even, then slightly quicker as the express crosses a smoother stretch of track. Each beat travels through the mattress and settles into your body. There is no single railway noise. The carriage carries dozens of them. A soft rattle comes from the window frame. A metal latch gives a faint click whenever the train leans into a curve. Pipes beneath the floor knock gently as steam heat moves through them. Farther along the corridor, a door sighs open, pauses, and closes with a padded thump. You begin to separate each sound from the others. The wheels speak in a repeating phrase, steady enough to feel almost musical. The joints between sections of rail create the familiar pattern that generations of passengers associate with nighttime travel. Where the track has been repaired or laid more smoothly, the rhythm changes, becoming a low continuous hum. Records confirm that railway companies increasingly use longer sections of welded rail during the middle years of the 20th century. Traditional rails are joined at regular intervals, producing distinct impacts beneath passing wheels. Welded rail reduces that repeated striking sound and can provide a smoother journey. In 1959, both kinds of track may lie along your route. You can hear the difference without seeing it. The train enters a rougher section, and the wheels begin a sharper conversation. The mattress trembles. A glass in the wash cabinet taps softly against its holder. Nothing feels dangerous. The carriage simply reminds you that comfort is being carried over steel, timber, stone, and frozen earth. Then the rails smooth again. A whistle rises from the locomotive. It reaches you as a distant, hollow call. Softened by the length of the train, the note expands across the countryside, warning a crossing hidden somewhere in the snow. It fades slowly, leaving an empty space that feels larger than the sound itself. Another whistle follows minutes later. This one is shorter. Railway crews use established whistle patterns to communicate warnings and movements. Different sequences may announce an approach to a road crossing, a backward movement, or a message to workers near the track to a passenger half asleep. However, every call seems to carry the same meaning. The train is moving. The night is listening. A low rushing sound begins beneath the window. Snow is brushing along the lower side of the carriage. Fine powder strikes the metal in soft waves, then vanishes as the train moves beyond the drift. You hear the heating system answer with a small clang. The pipes expand as hot steam travels through them. A moment later, warm air rises near the wall. Railway heating is usually appreciated most when it works quietly. When it knocks, hisses, or grows too enthusiastic, every passenger becomes an amateur engineer. Oddly enough, experienced travellers sometimes learn to sleep through violent rattles, yet wake instantly when the train becomes still. Motion feels normal. Silence suggests a station, a delay, or some unexplained interruption that the curious mind cannot ignore. The express does not stop. Its movement continues with a deep vibration that passes through the frame. The sound is not loud, yet it remains everywhere. It is beneath your pillow, behind the wall, inside the small table, and under the floor. A freight train approaches on a neighbouring track. You hear it before you see any light. The rails begin to hum, the vibration thickens. A distant roar grows quickly until the passing train fills the darkness with force. Engines rush by. Freight cars follow in a long pounding line. Their wheels strike the track with heavier voices. Loose doors shake. Chains slap against metal. Snow spins between the trains. For several seconds, your compartment trembles. Then the final car passes, and the roar falls away behind you. The overnight express seems almost Leichardt in comparison. You settle again. From somewhere above comes a brief scratching sound. A tree branch may have brushed snow across the roof as the train passed beneath it. Or perhaps ice has broken loose near a ventilator. The cause remains unseen, leaving your imagination to perform unnecessary work. You remind yourself that railway carriages are built to complain. Wood creaks, metal shifts, glass rattles, springs groan under changing weight. These noises do not always signal trouble. Often they are simply the sounds of materials responding to speed, cold, and constant motion. Historians argue over whether the famous rhythm of older trains should be remembered as soothing reality or romantic memory. Passengers often describe the movement with affection, yet actual journeys can include harsh jolts, noisy brakes, crowded berths, and sleepless hours. Nostalgia has a way of lowering the volume on discomfort. Still, the sounds around you possess a genuine calm. They repeat without demanding attention. A wheel turns. A rail answers. A coupling tightens. A curtain brushes the wall. At the far end of the car door, the porter walks through the corridor. His steps are careful and evenly spaced. He pauses near a compartment, taps lightly, and speaks in a quiet voice. Someone must be leaving at a small station. A suitcase clasp snaps shut. Shoes move across the carpet. The outer door opens, allowing a brief rush of cold air and sharper railway noise into the carriage. Brakes begin to whisper. The train slows, but only slightly, perhaps for a junction or a signal. You listen to the wheels change tempo. Their quick measure stretches into a slower one. Each impact becomes separate. The carriage leans gently, then straightens. Soon the speed returns. The railway rebuilds its rhythm beneath you. Your breathing begins to follow it. You inhale across several beats and exhale across several more. The pattern requires no counting. The train performs the counting for you. Outside, snow continues to fall across fields, roads, rivers, and sleeping roofs. Inside, every sound becomes part of a deep mechanical lullaby. The whistle calls once more through the darkness. The wheels continue beneath the bed. The warm pipes murmur near the wall, and the overnight express carries you forward within its steady music of iron, steam, wood, and winter. Sleep loosens its hold when you notice a thread of light beneath the compartment door. The train continues at speed, but your mind has become alert enough to wonder who remains awake at this hour. You wrap yourself in a robe, slide your feet into slippers, and step into the corridor. Most curtains are closed. The blue floor lamps cast a dim path toward the end of the car. You move carefully, keeping one hand near the polished wall as the train sways. The lounge is still open. Only 4 passengers remain inside. The bright ceiling lamps have been lowered, leaving pools of amber light around the chairs. A steward polishes glasses behind the small counter. Coffee rests in a silver pot, and the room carries the faint scent of roasted beans. furniture wax and old tobacco. And you choose a chair beside the window. Across from you sits a broad-shouldered man with silver hair and hands marked by years of practical work. His jacket is folded over the chair beside him. A railway watch hangs from his vest pocket on a short chain. He notices your glance and smiles. He worked on the railway for more than 30 years, first as a brakeman, then as a conductor. Retirement has not stopped him from travelling by train. He says a man may leave the railway, but the railway is less willing to leave the man. The steward pours coffee into 2 thick cups. The retired conductor begins with a story from the 1920s, when many passenger cars still carried open rear platforms. He remembers standing outside at dusk while sparks drifted from a steam locomotive and settled upon his coat. The view was magnificent, he says. The laundry afterward was less magnificent. You listen as the snow flashes beyond the window. He describes older coaches with stiff seats, smoky air, and windows that allowed soot to enter through the smallest opening. Travellers sometimes arrived with black specks on their collars and faces, especially during summer journeys when ventilation required courage. A curious footnote concerns the dust covers once sold for railway passengers. Light coats and protective garments could preserve formal clothing from soot and ash. Elegance on an early train often required several layers of defence against the locomotive itself. The retired conductor opens his watch and its face is clear and plain. He explains that railway employees carry watches inspected for accuracy because a few incorrect minutes may place 2 trains in danger on the same line. Records confirm that strict timekeeping becomes central to railway safety during this 19th century and remains important in 1959. Standard clocks, written train orders, and dependable watches help crews coordinate movement across enormous distances. He closes the case with a soft click. Another passenger joins the conversation. She is an older woman travelling home after visiting grandchildren. Her memories are not of railway work, but of wartime travel. She recalls crowded trains during the Second World War. Soldiers fill the aisles, families sit upon luggage, dining cars run short of familiar foods. Sleep becomes a luxury, yet strangers share sandwiches and help mothers carry children through busy stations. She remembers watching troop trains pass without knowing where the young men were going. Some wave from the windows, some look too tired to wave. Her voice remains calm, but the room grows still around it. The retired conductor says the railway carried more passengers during those years than anyone thought possible. Equipment ran constantly. Repairs were made quickly. Workers performed long shifts because trains carried troops, fuel, machinery, mail, and food. The nation depended upon rails even while private automobiles became symbols of freedom. You turn your cup slowly between your hands. The woman speaks of returning soldiers, crowded platforms, and embraces beneath station clocks. She also remembers how difficult peace could be. Jobs changed. Family changed. People expected life to become normal, but no one agreed on what normal meant. The youngest person in the lounge is a university student travelling west for the holidays. He leans forward and says the future belongs to jet aircraft. The retired conductor raises one eyebrow. The student explains that faster planes will soon carry ordinary families across the country in only hours. New highways will place every town within reach of the automobile. Television will connect homes to events as they happen. He speaks with the confidence of someone who has not yet received enough bills. The older woman asks what becomes of railway stations. The student pauses. He says some will probably close. No one answers immediately. Arguments split along competing views of the 1960s. Some historians see an approaching age of technology, expanding education, and social reform. Others emphasize the conflicts already visible beneath public confidence, including racial injustice, Cold War fear, and growing distrust between generations. From your chair, the new decade feels like an unopened letter. It might contain good news. It might contain a demand for immediate payment. The retired conductor looks toward the window. He says trains have survived canals, automobiles, buses, and airplanes. They may become fewer, but people will always need to move together. The student disagrees politely. He He believes individual travel offers more freedom. The older woman says freedom is useful until the car becomes trapped in snow. The storm gives her argument excellent timing. Wind throws a sheet of white against the glass. The outside world disappears completely for several seconds. Even the nearest trees vanish. The steward refills the coffee. Conversation turns toward everyday changes. New supermarkets replace small grocers. Plastic appears in kitchens and shops. Television keeps families indoors during evenings, once spent visiting neighbours. Long-distance telephone calls become easier, though still expensive enough to encourage efficient affection. The retired conductor misses station restaurants where crews knew one another by name. The older woman misses quiet streets. The student says people often miss things only when they no longer need to endure them. His remark earns a thoughtful silence. You realise that memory behaves much like railway scenery. It preserves a glowing farmhouse and forgets the cold walk to the barn. It remembers the polished dining car and softens the long delays. It keeps the farewell but loses the weight of the suitcase. The train begins to lean through a broad curve. Coffee slides toward one edge of your cup, shadows move across the wood panels, the silver watch chain catches the light. One by one, the remaining passengers rise. The retired conductor wishes you good night. The older woman gathers her knitting bag. The student folds a magazine beneath his arm. You remain for a moment in the nearly empty lounge. The new decade waits only months away, filled with promises no passenger can measure. Yet the train continues through the storm at its steady pace, carrying old memories and new expectations inside the same warm car. You finish the coffee and listen as the rails draw every story forward into the dark. The sky has begun to pale when the train enters the outer yards of Syracuse. Night still covers the land, yet the darkness is no longer complete. A faint grey band rests along the eastern horizon, barely visible through the storm. Snow continues to fall, but the flakes seem softer now, suspended between darkness and morning. You stand near the window as the express slows. Tracks multiply beneath the carriage. Freight cars wait on sidings, their roofs rounded with snow. A line of tank cars disappears beneath a bridge. Farther away, a switching engine pushes several boxcars through the yard, its headlamp moving slowly between signal posts. The city announces itself through industry. Low factory buildings rise beside the tracks. Their windows glow with early shifts already at work. Steam rises from vents and drifts across the railway, briefly hiding warehouses, loading platforms, and rows of parked trucks. The wheels pass over switch after the switch. Each change sends a light movement through the floor. The carriage leans, straightens, then glides onto another line. Brakes whisper beneath you, and the long train draws itself carefully toward the station. Syracuse has long served as an important railway and manufacturing center in central New York. Records confirm that several major routes meet here, linking communities to the east, west, north, and south. Passenger trains, freight services, and local lines make the city a vital point within the regional network. The station platforms emerge through the snow. Lamps burn beneath the long roof, casting pale circles across the white boards. Bundled workers move between baggage carts and mail wagons. Their boots leave dark tracks that fill slowly with fresh snow. The express stops beside the platform. Steam rises past your window and blurs the station sign. For a moment, the letters disappear completely. Then the wind shifts, revealing the name again. Syracuse. A porter opens the outer door. Cold air travels through the corridor, carrying the smell of coal smoke, wet stone, coffee, and snow. The station is awake, though the city beyond it still seems to be dreaming. Passengers step down carefully. A young man carries a canvas bag over one shoulder and looks around for someone meeting him. A woman in a red coat holds the hand of a sleepy girl. An older couple waits beneath the roof, standing close together while they search each arriving face. Near the baggage car, workers unload trunks, suitcases, cardboard boxes, and wrapped parcels. Each item receives a quick glance at its label before being placed on the proper cart. The work appears simple only from a distance. Every case must reach the correct platform, connecting train, delivery office, or waiting passenger. A misplaced suitcase may travel farther than its owner ever intended, enjoying an unexpected holiday without paying for a ticket. You see several milk containers beside a service door. They stand in neat rows, their metal surfaces dull beneath the lamps. Crates of newspapers are stacked nearby, bound tightly with cord. Within hours, those papers will reach shops, hotels, homes, and breakfast tables across the city. A curious footnote concerns the newspaper bundles tossed from some moving trains at smaller stops. Railway workers learn to throw them onto the platforms without striking signs, walls, or unfortunate bystanders. Accuracy matters, especially when the morning news arrives at speed. Here in Syracuse, the bundles are handled more gently. A worker lifts them onto a cart while another checks a list beneath the shelter of the platform roof. Snow blows around their legs, collecting against the wheels. You step into the corridor. Several passengers are awake now. Compartment doors open, coats appear, hair is combed, faces carry the uncertain expression of people who have arisen earlier than their good judgment recommends. The porter passes with a tray of coffee cups. You accept one and return to the window. The drink is strong, hot, and slightly bitter. Steam warms your face as you hold it beneath your chin. The cup trembles whenever someone moves along the carriage, sending small circles across the dark surface. Beyond the station, Syracuse stretches beneath winter. Rows of houses climb low hills, church towers rise above rooftops, factory chimneys stand against the grey sky. Streetlights still glow, though dawn is beginning to weaken them. The city is known for salt as well as railways and manufacturing, for generations. Brine from nearby springs supports a major salt industry, shaping local trade and giving Syracuse its familiar title as the Salt City. By 1959, the old salt works no longer dominate the economy as they once did, yet the memory remains within the city's identity. Oddly enough, salt that once preserves food and supports commerce also becomes useful into the modern struggle against icy roads. The same substance associated with kitchens, mines, and ancient trade now spends winter mornings being scattered beneath automobile tyres. You watch a road crew working near the station entrance. One man shovels salt from the back of a truck while another guides traffic around a drift. Their movements are slow but steady. The road surface shines black where snow has begun to melt. Arguments divide historians over whether cities such as Syracuse prosper mainly because of natural resources or because transportation networks transform those resources into lasting economic power. Salt alone creates opportunity, but canals, railways, factories, investment, and labour determine how far that opportunity spreads. From the train, both forces appear joined. The land provides materials. The railway carries them outward. People build lives between the two. A bakery delivery van turns onto the street beyond the platform. Its tyres press narrow paths through the snow. A faint warm scent reaches you when the station door opens. Perhaps bread from a nearby cafe or rolls being carried toward the dining counter. Inside the station, early travellers gather around a small refreshment stand. A waitress places cups beneath a metal coffee urn. A railway clerk eats toast while reading a timetable. Two soldiers sit with their bags between their feet, speaking quietly over plates of eggs. A station cleaner pushes a wide broom across the floor. The great waiting room seems caught between two moods. Part of it belongs to night, with sleeping passengers curled against their luggage. Another part belongs to morning, with clerks unlocking offices and vendors arranging fresh papers. The platform clock advances. A conductor walks beside the train, checking doors and speaking with crew members. Farther along, a signal changes colour. The locomotive releases a deep breath that rolls beneath the station roof. Passengers finish their farewells. The young man with the canvas bag finds his family. The girl in the red coat is lifted into waiting arms. A businessman boards at the last moment, carrying a briefcase and a paper cup that appears dangerously full. The whistle sounds. Your coffee ripples. The train begins to move, slowly passing lamps, pillars, baggage carts, and snow-covered roofs. Syracuse slides along the window in fragments of steam and pale morning light. The station falls behind. Ahead, the sky grows brighter over the tracks, while snow continues to descend upon the waking city. The main line begins to loosen its hold upon the landscape. You feel the change first through the wheels. The firm, confident rhythm of the broad route gives way to a more intimate pattern as the train eases across a junction. Points click beneath the carriage. The floor leans gently to one side. Outside, several tracks continue west, while your own line curves away toward lower hills and narrower country. The express no longer seems to command the night. It enters it more carefully. Tall signal bridges fall behind, replaced by simple posts beside the rails. Freight yards give way to small sidings where snow rests undisturbed upon empty flat cars. Telegraph wires remain overhead, but the poles stand closer to barns, gardens, and patches of woodland. A conductor walks through the sleeping car and announces that passengers for the lake towns should prepare for the smaller stations ahead. His voice is quiet, mindful of those still resting behind closed curtains. You return to the window. The railway bends into a shallow valley. Low ridges rise on either side, their wooded slopes softened by snow. A creek follows the track, appearing through breaks in the trees as a dark ribbon edged with ice. Here and there, water moves beneath delicate frozen shelves. The locomotive works harder on the gradual climb. Its pull reaches through the couplings in slow waves. The carriage answers with light creaks. Speed falls just enough for you to notice individual trees, stone walls, and wooden gates instead of watching them blend into darkness. Historical records show that branch railways once connected many smaller communities across New York State to the major national routes. They carried passengers, milk, fruit, coal-sod, mail, and manufactured goods between rural towns and larger markets. Such lines rarely possess the grandeur of famous expresses. Their importance lies in ordinary dependence. A village without direct railway service may struggle to move produce quickly, receive machinery, or maintain regular contact during winter. A single morning train can carry newspapers, medicine, parcels, travellers, and several weeks of local gossip. You pass a narrow platform beside a white wooden shelter. The train slows but does not stop. A railway worker stands near the track holding a green lantern. Snow covers the brim of his cap. Behind him, a horse-drawn sleigh waits beside a stack of wooden crates. The site seems older than 1959. Yet old and new travel side by side in these valleys. Automobiles stand in farmyards, but horses still serve practical purposes. Modern refrigerators hum in houses heated by stoves. Television aerials rise above roofs where families continue habits shaped generations earlier. The track enters a cut between walls of dark rock. Icicles hang from the ledges, long and cloudy beneath the snow. The sound of the train becomes enclosed and powerful. Wheels echo against stone. The whistle returns from the hills in broken pieces. Then the valley opens again. Orchards cover the slopes. Their bare branches form orderly rows across the white ground. Some trees are low and carefully pruned. Others stand older and wider, their limbs twisted by the years of wind and harvest. Fruit growing thrives in parts of the Finger Lakes region because the deep lakes soften extreme temperatures near their shores. Cold air moves differently across the sloping land, and spring growth may receive some protection from sudden frost. The quiet water possesses influence even when hidden beyond the hills. One curious footnote concerns orchard owners who place simple heaters among fruit trees during dangerous cold spells. On still nights, rows of small fires may glow across the slopes, creating the strange appearance of a formal garden prepared for invisible guests. You imagine workers moving between the trees before dawn. They check temperatures, tend smoky heaters, and watch the sky with anxious patience. A single cold night can damage blossoms that represent an entire season of incoming. The railway follows another curve. A cluster of farm buildings appears near the creek. Chickens remain inside a low shed, sheltered from the snow. A tractor stands beneath an open lean-to, its seat covered with white. Near the farmhouse door, someone has swept a clean path to the woodpile. The train crosses a short trestle. Below, the creek rushes through a narrow gorge. Snow clings to fallen logs and exposed roots. The water looks black against the surrounding white, moving quickly enough to resist the ice. The wooden houses grow less frequent. Forest gathers close to the rails. Branches brush the outer edge of the train with faint scratching sounds. Every few minutes, a utility line enters the valley, follows the road, then disappears behind the hillside. Scholars continue to dispute whether branch railways declined mainly because automobiles offered greater personal freedom, or because companies withdrew services before communities had workable alternatives. Passenger numbers fell, yet reduced schedules made trains less convenient, which encouraged even more passengers to leave. The decline became both cause and consequence. From your window, the smaller railway still appears alive. Track workers have cleared the switches. Station lamps remain lit. Freight waits on sidings. Travellers gather beneath shelter roofs with suitcases, baskets, and carefully wrapped packages. A whistle sounds for a road crossing. The lane ahead is little more than 2 dark tyre tracks through the snow. A farmer waits in a truck beside the lowered gate. His dog sits upright on the passenger seat, studying the train with grave suspicion. The final car clears the road. The truck continues toward a red barn tucked beneath the hill. You notice how closely the railway now belongs to the land. It does not cut across open distance with the authority of the main route. It curves around slopes, follows water, passes behind houses, and slips between orchards. The settlements seem more private. A kitchen table stands visible through one uncurtained window. A woman pours something into a bowl while a child sits nearby in a wool sweater. Another house. Sheets of newspaper have been placed inside the windows to help block the cold. No streetlights connect these homes. Each one creates its own small island of warmth. The sky continues to brighten behind the snow clouds. Shapes become clearer. Fence posts cast faint shadows. The valley road shines where ploughs have pushed aside the deepest drifts. Farther ahead, the hills separate. A pale opening appears between them, broad enough to suggest water beyond the trees. The air itself seems different, carrying a quieter light across the fields. The train moves onward at its careful branch-line pace, deeper into the valleys where orchards, creeks, farms, and small stations gather close around the rails. Morning reaches the valley by degrees. The snow clouds remain low, yet a pale silver light spreads across the hills, revealing fences, rooftops, and narrow roads that were hidden in darkness. The world outside the window no longer flashes past as scattered lamps. It becomes a living landscape, quiet but beginning to stir. A village appears beside the railway. Its houses stand close to the main street, each roof carrying a smooth white burden. Chimneys release thin columns of smooth smoke. The smoke rises straight for several feet, then bends gently toward the east, showing that the wind has weakened. You see a bakery at the corner. Light fills its front window, and steam clouds the glass from within. A man in a white apron carries a wooden tray toward the counter. Even through the sealed carriage, your mind supplies the scent of warm bread, cinnamon, and flour. A delivery boy opens the side door. He steps into the snow with a basket covered by cloth, pauses to tighten his scarf, then begins walking toward the houses. His boots leave sharp prints across the clean pavement. In towns such as this, morning begins early. Farm families need bread before work, shopkeepers prepare their counters, railway employees check schedules and clear platforms. Children wake in cold bedrooms and dress near stoves that have been burning since before dawn. Records confirm that many small American communities in 1959 still depend heavily upon locally owned shops, bakers, butchers, grocers, pharmacists, and hardware merchants often know their customers by name and may extend credit when money is short. Such trust can feel generous. It can also ensure that everyone knows exactly who has not paid the grocery bill. The train slows near a small station. A wooden building stands beneath a wide roof, painted cream with dark green trim. Snow has been swept from part of the platform, forming a narrow path from the waiting room to the track. 3 passengers stand beneath the shelter. One is a woman carrying a round suitcase. Another is a man in work clothes with a metal lunchbox. The third is a teenage girl holding a wrapped parcel against her coat. The station agent opens the door and steps outside. He wears a heavy cardigan beneath his uniform jacket. In one hand, he carries a clipboard. In the other, he holds a mug that sends steam into the cold air. The train stops. The man with the lunchbox boards first. Perhaps he works in a larger town where wages are better. Perhaps he returns weekly from a factory shift. His face remains calm, but his shoulders carry the stiffness of someone who has been awake for a long time. The woman follows. She turns once to wave toward a parked automobile. A gloved hand answers from behind the windshield. The teenage girl does not board. She gives her parcel to the conductor, who checks the label and places it inside. The package may contain a birthday cake, repaired clothing, family photographs, or some object too precious to trust to ordinary mail. A quirky feature of small-town railway service is the range of items sent through station agents. Chickens, garden tools, jars of preserves, musical instruments, and even household furniture may begin a journey beside ordinary luggage. A railway station can become part post office, part warehouse, and part neighbourhood favour. The conductor signal. The village begins moving past your window again. You see a church with a square bell tower. Its front steps have been cleared, though snow already covers the edges. Across the road, a row of bicycles stands beneath the porch of a school building. Children approach from several directions. Some walk in pairs, pulling wool hats low over their ears. Others arrive in cars that pause briefly beside the gate. One boy drags a sled behind him, though its presence at school will almost certainly create more ambition than education. A bell rings from somewhere in the village. Its sound reaches the train faintly, softened by glass and snowfall. The notes spread across the rooftops, calling Mars people toward the work, school, worship, or simply the next part of the days. Near the edge of town, a blacksmith shop still operates beside a newer automobile garage. The older building has broad wooden doors and a smoking chimney. The garage displays painted signs for tyres, oil, and battery service. A truck rests on a lift inside, while a mechanic stands beneath it with both arms raised. The 2 businesses face the same road. One belongs to a world shaped by horses. The other serves a world increasingly shaped by engines. Historians remain divided over whether the loss of small village businesses should be understood mainly as economic progress, or as the weakening of local independence. Larger stores offer wider selection and lower prices, yet they may draw trade away from family shops that provide personal knowledge, informal credit, and social connection. You watch that tension unfold in ordinary details. A delivery truck from a regional company passes the local grocer. A bright fuel station stands near an older general store. A television aerial rises above nearly every roof, carrying distant voices into homes that once depended more completely upon local news. The railway crosses the village street. A crossing guard lowers the gate by hand. He wears a dark coat and thick gloves. 2 cars wait beside him, their engines releasing white clouds into the cold. One driver reads a newspaper while the train passes. The other stares directly at your window. For a brief second, your eyes seem to meet. Then the carriage moves beyond him. The village thins into scattered houses. Each one reveals a different morning ritual. In one kitchen, a woman stands beside a stove, turning something in a frying pan. In another, a man ties his necktie while looking into a mirror near the window. A child wipes a clear circle in the frost and watches the train with open curiosity. Laundry hangs beneath a covered porch, stiff from the cold. A milk bottle waits beside a door, its cream pushed upward by freezing temperatures. Birds gather near a feeder made from an old tin container. A cat sits upon a windowsill, safely indoors and deeply pleased with this arrangement. Farther along, another village rests beside the lake road. Its main street curves around a small public square. Bare trees stand around a stone memorial. A snowplow moves slowly past the courthouse, pushing a heavy ridge toward the curb. Shopkeepers raise shades. A barber turns his striper pole. A pharmacist unlocks the front door and carries a wooden sign onto the pavement. The morning is not dramatic. No crowd cheers. No band plays, no great speech announces the beginning of the day, yet life gathers steadily. Fires are fed, counters are wiped, letters are opened, coffee is poured, doors are unlocked. The train carries you through these waking communities while the silver ski grows brighter above the hills. Snow continues to fall, but now it settles upon moving people, open shops, and streets filling with fresh tracks. You watch the villagers awaken one window at a time, each warm room holding a small beginning within the winter morning. The land begins to fall away beside the railway. For several minutes, you see only the pale slope of a hillside and the bare tops of orchard trees. Then the train rounds a broad curve, the valley opens, and a long sheet of dark water appears between the snowy ridges. The lake does not reveal itself all at once. First comes a narrow strip of silver beneath the morning clouds. Then the view widens. The water stretches north and south beyond the limits of the window, calm near the shore and darker toward the centre. Snow rests upon the hills on both sides, making the lake seem quieter and more ancient. You lean closer to the glass. The first light of dawn spreads across the surface in soft grey bands. It does not sparkle. The sky is too heavy for that. Instead, the lake holds the light with a grave stillness, reflecting clouds, drifting snow, and the shadowed slopes. A small boathouse stands near the shore. Its roof is white, and its lower posts disappear into black water. A wooden pier reaches outward. Though several boards are hidden beneath snow, 2 rowboats rest upside down beside a shed, waiting patiently for a season that feels very far away. The railway follows the hillside above the water. From this height, you can see narrow farms descending toward the shore. Stone walls divide orchards and fields. Houses stand where the slope becomes gentle, each with a view of the lake and a winter wind that probably enters through every poorly fitted window. Records confirm that the Finger Lakes were shaped by vast sheets of ice during the last great period of glaciation. Moving ice deepened older river valleys, widened their sides, and left behind the long narrow basins now filled with water. The lakes resemble fingers upon a map because they run roughly north and south in close parallel lines. From your window, however, they do not look like marks on paper, they look like separate worlds. The train crosses a short bridge above a stream flowing toward the lake. Water rushes between shelves of ice, carrying snowmelt, leaves, and small branches downhill. Near the mouth of the stream, a fan of pale sediment spreads beneath the dark surface. A fisherman stands on the bank. He wears a heavy coat and holds a short rod over a narrow opening in the ice near shore. A tin bucket rests beside him. His posture suggests patience, endurance, and perhaps a private determination not to return home empty-handed. Oddly enough, some winter fishermen place small shelters upon frozen water, complete with stools, lamps, and tiny stoves. The result is a village of huts standing where boats travel in summer. It is sensible, in its way, though trusting a frozen lake enough to bring furniture onto it requires a special kind of confidence. The centre of this lake remains open. Wind moves across it in slow dark lines. Snowflakes vanish the moment they touch the water. Along sheltered coves, thin ice forms in pale sheets, but farther out the depth resists the cold. You watch a flock of birds lift from the shore. They turn together above the surface, briefly catching the growing light beneath their wings. Then they settle near a reed bed where the water remains unfrozen. The hills rise more sharply ahead. Their slopes are patterned with woodland, orchards, and long open fields. Snow gathers differently upon each surface. Forests appear charcoal grey, orchards form neat dark rows, pastures lie smooth and almost blue beneath the clouds. A road follows the shore below. An automobile moves along it slowly, leaving 2 clean tracks through fresh snow. The driver passes a lakeside inn with a wide porch and shuttered windows. In summer, visitors may sit there with drinks, newspapers, and strong opinions about the weather. This morning, the chairs are stacked indoors. Tourism has long drawn travellers to the Finger Lakes for scenery, boating, fishing, health retreats, and summer holidays. Railways helped promote the region by making lakeside towns accessible to visitors from larger cities. Posters often presented blue water, green hills, and elegant hotels. They rarely emphasize mosquitoes, sudden rain, or the possibility of carrying a large suitcase up a steep station road. The lake grows brighter as the clouds thin near the horizon. A narrow line of pale gold appears above the eastern ridge. It touches the highest tree branches first, then spreads down the snowy slope. Farm roofs begin to shine. The water changes from black to deep steel blue. You notice a steamer landing near a cluster of buildings. The old pier is larger than the others, built to receive passenger boats and freight. A warehouse stands beside it, its doors closed. Once, vessels moved people and goods between communities along the shore, linking farms, villages, and railway stations. By 1959, automobiles and improved roads have reduced much of that traffic. Yet the landing remains. Its timbers hold years of weather, ropes, crates, footsteps, and farewells. Historians continue to disagree over whether railways preserve the identity of lakeside communities by connecting them to outside markets, or weaken that identity by drawing trade and young people toward larger cities. Connection creates opportunity, but it also changes where people shop, work, and imagine their future. The lake offers no answer. It receives every change with the same calm surface. A farmhouse stands above a vineyard whose vines are tied along low wires. Snow lies between the rows. The plants appear lifeless, but their roots wait beneath the frozen soil. Nearby, a man walks from the barn carrying 2 buckets. His breath shows in the cold. A dog follows him, pausing every few steps to inspect the snow with great professional seriousness. The train enters a stand of trees. For a minute, the lake disappears behind trunks and branches. You catch only quick flashes of water between them. The view becomes a moving pattern of white ground, dark bark, and silver distance. Then the trees open again. Now the lake lies closer. You can see small waves touching the stony shore. Each one leaves a thin edge of foam before drawing back. Snow rests above the waterline, clean and untouched. The train whistle sounds across the valley. Its call travels over the lake and returns faintly from the opposite hills. The echo seems slower than the original note, softened by distance and snow. You sit without speaking. The dawn continues to grow, revealing cottages, orchards, docks, and wooded points along the shore. The lake holds them all within one broad, quiet view. The railway curves beside the water, carrying you through the pale morning while the first full light settles across the Finger Lakes. The train gives a long, low whistle as the lakeside town draws near. You feel the brakes take hold beneath the carriage. The steady motion softens, wheels turn more slowly, and the gentle sway becomes a careful rocking as the railway curves toward the station. Outside, the morning is pale and quiet. Snow continues to fall in broad, unhurried flakes. It settles upon fences, rooftops, bare branches, and the narrow road beside the tracks. A few people move through the town, each wrapped in a heavy coat and leaving a dark trail across the white ground. The station appears between 2 rows of trees. It is a modest wooden building with a steep roof and a small covered platform. Dark green letters display the name of the town above the waiting room door. Snow clings to the sign, filling the corners of each letter. A station agent stands near the track with a lantern at his side. He wears a thick scarf and keeps one hand inside his coat pocket. Behind him waits a porter with a baggage cart, its iron wheels resting in shallow grooves cut through the snow. The locomotive releases steam. White clouds roll along the platform, wrapping around boots, luggage, and wooden posts. For several seconds, the station disappears inside the mist. Then the steam thins, revealing the waiting faces again. The train stops. The sudden stillness feels deep. You hear the tick of cooling metal, the murmur of passengers in the corridor, and the soft patter of snow against the window. Somewhere near the front, a door opens with a heavy metallic sound. You gather your belongings. Your nightclothes are folded inside the case. Your book remains nearly unread. Your gloves wait on the small table, dry and warm. You close the clasps of your suitcase and test them twice. Because a railway platform is an unfortunate place to discover that one has developed independence. The porter arrives at your door. He lifts the larger case with easy strength and carries it into the corridor. You follow, one hand resting against the wall while the train gives a final small movement beneath your feet. Other passengers are preparing to leave. The young couple stand beside their luggage, looking both tired and hopeful. An elderly woman adjusts her hat in the corridor mirror. A businessman searches every pocket for his ticket, finds it inside his glove, and accepts this discovery without admitting surprise. You reach the outer door. Cold air meets you immediately. It touches your face, sharp and clean, carrying the scent of snow, wood smoke, damp timber, and distant lake water. You pause at the top of the steps while the porter places your suitcase on the platform. Then you descend. Your shoe presses into a thin layer of fresh snow. The wooden boards creak beneath your weight. Steam moves around your ankles, and the dark side of the train rises beside you like a warm metal wall. Records confirm that small railway stations often serve as important community centres during the middle years of the 20th century. They receive passengers, mail, newspapers, farm goods, and news from distant places. Even when the waiting room is small, the station connects the town to a much larger world. The agent checks a list while baggage is unloaded. A wooden crate marked for the local pharmacy is placed on the cart. Several sacks of mail follow. Bundles of newspapers land beside them, tied with thick cord and protected beneath waxed paper. A boy waits near the station door with a handcart. He watches the newspapers with serious attention. Within an hour, he may be carrying them to shops, houses, and hotel desks across town. The great events of the wider world will arrive beneath his wool cap and winter boots. Oddly enough, station agents in small communities sometimes perform duties far beyond selling tickets. They may carry messages, arrange freight, help travellers find rooms, watch lost children, and provide weather opinions whether requested or not. The station agent looks at the sky and tells someone that the snow will continue until noon. His confidence suggests a private agreement with the clouds. You step beneath the platform roof. The porter places your case beside a wooden bench. Snow melts along the shoulders of his coat. You thank him, and he touches the brim of his cap before turning toward another passenger. The waiting room door opens. Warm air carries the scent of coal, coffee, and old wood. Inside, a black stove glows near the wall. A few travellers sit upon polished benches, while a clerk works behind a ticket window framed by brass bars. A timetable hangs beside the door. Its columns list towns, distances, and departure times. The neat printing gives every journey an appearance of certainty, even though weather, machinery, and human nature may disagree. You remain on the platform, across the tracks. The town rises gently toward the hills. Houses stand beneath snowy maples. Smoke curls from brick chimneys. A church bell rings once, then again, its sound spreading softly through the morning air. A horse pulls a delivery sleigh along the road. Its harness bells create a delicate rhythm. The driver raises one hand toward the station agent, who answers with a nod. Behind the sleigh, an automobile follows slowly, its tyres turning through the same packed tracks. Historians continue to debate whether the disappearance of small passenger stations represents necessary modernisation or the loss of a valuable public gathering place. Larger roads and private cars offer convenience, yet they also reduce the daily meetings once created by shared travel. Here, the station still holds the town together for a few minutes. Families greet arriving relatives. Shopkeepers collect parcels. Workers wait for local connection. Children study the locomotive from a safe distance while pretending not to be impressed. A woman calls your name from near the station entrance. She stands beside a dark automobile wearing a wool coat and a knitted hat. Her smile carries the warmth of recognition. You lift one hand and she begins walking toward you through the snow. Behind you, the conductor calls for passengers to board. Doors close along the train. The porter steps onto the carriage and lifts the metal stair. The station agent raises his lantern. The locomotive answers with a powerful breath. Slowly the express begins to move. Windows pass beside you, each holding a face, a lamp, or an empty seat. The dining car glides past, followed by sleeping cars and the rounded rear carriage. Snow swirls in the moving air. You watch the final red light recede along the track. The sound of the wheels becomes softer, then distant. The whistle reaches across the lake once more, fading among the snowy hills. The platform grows still. Your suitcase rests beside you. Cold air fills your lungs. Wood smoke drifts over the rooftops, and fresh snow settles gently upon the quiet morning. The red lamp at the rear of the train grows smaller between the falling flakes. You stand beneath the station roof and watch it follow the curve beside the lake. The final carriage sways once, passes behind a line of bare trees, and vanishes into the white distance. Its whistle lingers across the valley, becoming softer until it seems less like a machine and more like a memory carried over the water. The rails remain dark where the wheels have cleared them. Steam drifts above the track, thinning in the cold air. Snow begins filling the shallow marks left by boots and luggage carts. Within minutes, the platform looks quieter, almost untouched. The woman who greeted you takes one handle of your suitcase. Together, you walk toward the station entrance, where an automobile waits with its engine runnings. The car is dark blue, with rounded fenders and a broad front seat. Warm air rises weakly from the heater. The windshield wipers move from side to side with patient determination, clearing a narrow view through the snow. You place your suitcase in the rear and settle beside the window. The automobile moves slowly along the lakeside road. Snow presses beneath the tyres with a dry, compact sound. Houses pass among tall trees, their porches sheltered by deep roofs. Several windows display electric candles, giving each home a warm and welcoming face. The lake remains visible between the buildings. Its surface is dark near the centre, while thin ice gathers along the sheltered edge. Small waves touch the frozen stones with quiet. Regular taps, reeds bend beneath caps of snow, and a wooden dock reaches into the water like a narrow hand. Your destination is a family run-in standing upon a low rise above the shore. The building is 3 stories tall, with white siding, green shutters, and a broad porch facing the lake. Smoke curls from 2 chimneys. A carved wooden sign hangs beside the drive, moving slightly whenever the wind reaches it. A yellow lamp burns above the entrance. You step from the automobile, and the cold settles around you again. Snow lands on your coat and melts against the fabric. The air smells of wood smoke, pine, wet stone, and something sweet coming from the kitchen. Inside, the inn is quiet. A grandfather clock stands in the hall, its pendulum moving behind a glass door. Wool rugs cover the wooden floor. Framed photographs show summer boats, picnic parties, fishing groups, and families gathered on the porch many years ago. The innkeeper welcomes you from behind a polished desk. She opens a large guest register and turns it toward you. The pages contain names written in many different hands. Some visitors come from nearby cities. Others have travelled from distant states. A few families return so often that their entries appear year after year. Historical records show that lakeside inns and boarding houses played an important role in Finger Lakes tourism. Railway passengers arrived for fishing, boating, fresh air, religious gatherings, and long summer holidays. Local families provided rooms, meals, guides, carriages, and countless practical comforts. The innkeeper gives you a brass key attached to a wooden tag. Your room overlooks the water, but she tells you that breakfast is ready if you would like something warm first. This suggestion requires very little consideration. You enter a small dining room where 4 tables stand beneath lace curtains. A fire burns in a stone hearth. Logs settle with soft cracks, sending sparks upward behind the iron screen. A pot of coffee waits beside warm milk. Your breakfast includes oatmeal, toasted bread, stewed apples, and 2 eggs served on a heavy china plate. The food is simple, hot, and deeply welcome. Cinnamon rises from the apples, butter melts into the toast, the spoon warms in your hand as you stir the oatmeal. Another guest sits near the window reading a local newspaper. He is a travelling insurance agent whose automobile became trapped behind a snowdrift during the night. He explains that the road looked perfectly safe until it suddenly did not, which is an excellent summary of winter travel. The innkeeper promises that a plough will pass soon. She says this with the calm confidence of someone who has lived beside the lake long enough to know that storms cannot be hurried. You finish breakfast and carry your coffee onto the enclosed porch. Wide windows face the water, wicker chairs stand beside small tables, and folded blankets rest inside a wooden chest. You choose a chair near the glass and wrap one blanket across your knees. The lake fills the view. Snow falls over it in soft curtains. The opposite hills appear and disappear as the clouds shift. A few cottages stand near the shoreline, their roofs and steps buried beneath white. One strange winter detail is that lake ice sometimes produces booming, humming, or singing sounds when the temperatures change. Expanding and contracting sheets of ice send vibrations across the surface, startling anyone who expects frozen water to remain politely silent. A low note rises near the shore. It travels beneath the snow, deep and brief, like a distant drum. The insurance agent looks up from his newspaper, then returns to reading. The innkeeper continues arranging cups. Neither appears concerned. You listen for another sound. Instead, you hear the fire, the quiet clock in the hall, and the faint scrape of a shovel outside the kitchen door. The morning develops slowly around the inn. A delivery truck arrives with bread and milk. The driver carries boxes through the side entrance. Stamping snow from his boots, a local fisherman stops to discuss the condition of the roads. 2 women enter for coffee and exchange news about a fallen tree, a delayed bus, and a neighbour recovering from illness. The inn becomes part of the town's social life. Guests bring stories from distant places, residents bring local information, meals, weather, work, and family news pass across the tables as naturally as cups and plates. Scholars remain unsettled over whether tourism strengthens small communities or gradually reshapes them for the comfort of outsiders. Visitors provide income and support local businesses, yet seasonal demand may alter housing, work, and the character of the shoreliners. From your chair, the question feels both important and distant. The innkeeper adds another log to the fire. You hold the warm cup between your hands and look toward the railway. The track curves along the hillside, empty now, except for a faint line where the train passed. Snow settles over the rails. The lake continues its slow movement beneath the winter skiing. Smoke rises from the town. Morning lamps fade as daylight strengthens behind the clouds. Your room waits upstairs with clean sheets, a heavy quilt, and a window overlooking the shore. There is no need to hurry toward it. For now, you remain beside the glass. The journey has released you into a gentler stillness, where the train whistle has faded, breakfast warms your body, and snow continues falling upon the lake without asking anything from you. Word count 981. Now the lake grows quieter. and the snowy hills soften beneath the morning sky. You let the last trace of the train fade from your thoughts, keeping only its warmth, its steady rhythm, and the gentle glow of windows moving through darkness. Your breathing slows. Your hands rest easily. The journey has carried you far enough for one night. When you wake, leave a comment and share the moment you loved most. Perhaps it was the dining car, the narrow berth, the station lamps, or the first silver view of the lake. Your memories help this quiet community travel together. Then choose the next story waiting on the channel, where another road, ship, palace, or railway will open softly around you. For now, let the shore grow still, let the snow cover every sound, and let sleep come closer with each calm breath. Good night, dear traveller, and rest peacefully. Blessings to you and your family.